Gotcha.
If you had the option, you can have the plastic
You're
block,
right.
or you can have
You're right.
the Smurf ensemble.
I'm picking the Smurfs 11 times out of 10. But you can.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm John. He's Andy. Look out, Mama. There's a white boat coming up the river with a big red beacon and a flag and a man on a rail. I think you better call John because it doesn't look like they're here to deliver the mail. And it's less than a mile away. I hope they didn't come to stay. He's got numbers on the side and a gun, and it's making big waves. More on that later. But first, we have a song to listen to, selected by my glamorous assistant, Andy.
That's me.
12, give us a 12.
The spitting image of glamour.
Andy, what have you got?
I've got a band that I know you are to some degree familiar with because I am as well. And Greg had done an episode devoted to these guys. It was House of Jealous Lovers by the Rapture. And I know that you're familiar with that song because I saw you comment on it. I'm familiar with that song as well. I watched that video, enjoyed it very much. Like these guys a lot. And I wanted to bring something else by them to our channel in hopes that you hadn't heard it before. So here is my shot. Yeah, the band, The Rapture, the song Whoo, all right. Yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I'm sure you'd realize that with a title like that, it would be like nectar to me. But surprisingly, I'd not heard of this song. I'm familiar with the Rapture mainly because of the title song from the album Echoes was used in a TV show as a theme tune over here. And instinctively, because of that, or just subconsciously, I have to remind myself that they're not British, they are American, because I just equate it with this British, TV show. But
Sure.
yeah, that's the extent of what I'm familiar to them. So anything outside that first album, not a Scooby.
Well, how serendipitous, because you're going to go off and listen to this track, and it's one you're not familiar with, but it is a band you are, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it.
Okie dokie. That's a nice start. I like the percussion, the different things he was hitting there. Is that cowbell, wooden block, and plastic gnome? I don't know. Was that higher sound? That might have been the wooden block. But yeah, this sounds like the Rapture already. So there you go. Bouncy, indie, dancey. Yeah, good stuff. It's interesting. Listen to this. I can't. I found out to focus on other things. The percussion's what I'm hearing the most of all the time. His voice is same as always. Meh, but it suits the genre. It's all right. the sort of riffing guitar as well, and the bass is doing stuff. Everything is kind of staccato. It's all just little bits and pieces. So the song is made up of, a sprinkling of hundreds of thousands. Nothing's really joined up at all. There's no sustained notes or anything. So it's all bit, 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 which gives it this sort of spiky, bouncy feel to it. Is what they're going for. Very effective. Just as I said that and started playing it, you get the sustained synth now, making me look a right tip. But there you go. So there is bits of it doing that. It's hard to run. I said this ain't no laboratory. You're a gun. She said emotional distance. It doesn't rhyme or resonate brilliant in its time, but it's a lyrical genius or crap rock poetry. I said the lineage runs more with some Patti Smith than me. That's right. Yeah, that was interesting when he said, I've forgotten what he said now, but 2:15 I write it down. The guitar came in, it was a bit more, and rather than the stabbing, it was tick 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 tick, and had a lot more sort of dynamic groove to it. It started making me think that this is like a modern version of some of the mid-period Talking Heads when they go a bit sort of funky and try and do that. It didn't have like the polyrhythms, but it was a bit like that. And then the sort of the mass chorus came in with him going, oh yeah, that, and that kind of made me feel, for some reason, of Tom Tom Club, which of course is an offshoot. But yeah, that was an enjoyable part of that. I might just, it's a shortish song. Let's pull it back a little bit. This bit. Yeah, that was enjoyable. There's a couple of bits in it that slightly annoyed me, that stopped it from being like excellent. Um, for my ears. Some of the sort of that do 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 do, it's really cheesy and it's been used so much, and I don't. I think they really had something where they were like going into the jam bit with a guitar, and a bit of energy. I mean the mass voice, all right, girls, it sounded a bit childish, but you know it's fine. Um, but yeah, it was really enjoyable. Um, is kind of what the Rapture does, from what I know of them. Um, yeah, so good enough. I enjoyed it. Let's go back to Andy and see what he has got to say on it.
Welcome back. So you made it through the Rapture. What you make of this song?
So, start of this. There's a fairly rapid fade up with percussion and this boisterous guitar before we get a like 4 note bass and cymbal tannoy announcement. The song has arrived. The song has arrived. Um, and immediately we're firmly in what I know as the Rapture territory, the sort of bouncy, indie, dancey, fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to say straight off, the percussion is really interesting and it grabs my attention at the start and throughout quite often, like a toddler pulling on your sleeve. That first tranche of it, you'd hear hi-hat, cowbells, wooden blockwork,
Yeah.
and something plastic sounding. I think was perhaps a garden gnome. I'm not sure what he was hitting. It could have been one of those little small model Smurfs used to get. I could see that being on a drum kit, a rack of them. Um,
Yeah, that over a plastic block. Yeah, you're just going to convince them to
if
have plastic objects. Okay, gotcha.
you had the option, you can have the plastic
You're
block,
right.
or you can have
You're right.
the Smurf ensemble.
I'm picking the Smurfs 11 times out of 10. What are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So we also have that quite typical choppy guitar, and it's really of its time. And again, it made me think, you got noughties choppy guitar
Hmm.
versus sort of 80s new wave choppy guitar, and they each got the sound of their own time, which is cool, and a very funky bass as well. And the first time I heard it come in, it was quite low and distorted. I don't thought for a minute it was like an electric bass, but it wasn't. Well, it's that, but the rest of it wasn't. You could clearly hear that it's a proper instrument. But yeah, there's like a mini whoosh, and then the singer starts. Now, I always thought his voice is for me a bit meh, but it's appropriate for the song and the genre, and it's not like a block or anything to me listening to it. It's just fine. It does what it does. And it's very, again, quite typical of that sort of genre type thing. As the song progresses, said percussion won't leave me alone. But I do notice that it's the bass that's really leading the way through the song. We get tiny variations from the guitar, but it's the rhythm section doing the business for me within the song, 100%. So with the title Whoo, we're into the group vocals chorus. And he mentions a clock stopping and then handily proceeds to tick, 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 which is something which a clock stopping wouldn't do. But there you go. Don't want to be that person. But just thought I mentioned it. I paused the video here to comment on the reaction, how staccato everything was. The percussion, the drums, the guitar stabs, the bass, and to an extent the vocals as well. And
Hmm.
it's that sort of oral equivalent of like a half-tone newspaper photograph. Everything is made up of tiny dots, and it gives you an overall impression. And I think the methodology in this is such that that's what creates this spiky, bouncy momentum. And like the photograph, it's the size and the spacing that gives you the variation of an overall impression of something. Um, And I just thought it was interesting. And then I restarted the video, and literally within half a second, there's a sustained synth part, making me look a complete tit for mentioning all this. Nothing sustained at all. So yeah, thanks for that. So we go through another verse, and now there's more high whistling from the synth before we get to a small passage which is introduced with a couple of R2D2 noises. There's a Patti Smith name check as well. And then this bit, the synths actually are filling in all the gaps of this staccato, everything else, and the crash cymbals are being read. And that sounds a lot fuller just for a short period. I don't know, 20 seconds or something, but it's noticeably different. So then we get another chorus, more tick, 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 ticking. And then around the 2:15 mark, the singer asks to wind it up now. And at this point, the guitar riffs become less spaced apart, almost more continuous. And we get a few more arcade noises. And we get this sort of commentary of this 4-note phrase from the keys, do, 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 which is something they've done in their other songs I've heard as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very sort of well-worn, almost cheesy thing that you heard it a lot. You used to hear it actually in a lot of two-tone songs, the sort of ska songs as well. And it has for me, and I don't know if it's intentional, maybe it is, but it has almost like a pantomime feel to it. Do, 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 do. It's just, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's cheesy and fun.
Yes.
So then we get these group vocals along with it, and there's almost like a bit of back and forth, and at that point it becomes a little bit sort of almost childish. It's like playgroundy chanting type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a bit more alcoholic lubrication would be needed for me to enjoy that bit. The instrumental part of this started to make me think of mid-period funky Talking Heads with like chocolate
I can
guitars
totally
and
see
stuff.
that.
And then with the vocals coming in, all those for some reason, and might be just because of Wordy Rappington or whatever, but I started thinking Tom Tom Club, and I couldn't think of anything else, which is obviously an offshoot, you know. But it has got that vibe to it. It's really, really interesting, and I really enjoy that. He then asks the girls if they're ready. And R2D2 feels left out, and he chirps in a bit more. But that actual groove for that last minute, 2 minutes, is really, really good.
Yeah.
Then we get a last gasp from the singer before the cliched guitar death rattle, and we're out. So overall, I enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. I think some of their touches in there stopped it from being really good to my ears. But I think that's probably some of the bits which they enjoyed doing the most, and other people listening to it would enjoy as well.
Yeah.
That sort of group, almost clubby feel to it and stuff, which is what they're going for. I get it totally. It's just being a miserable twat. I find it annoying. But the core of it was again really, like their other songs I've heard, decent, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that another act that they remind me, and probably always will remind me of, because I think I listened to the one and then listened to these guys, and it was around the same time, but still LCD Sound System, who I think are label mates with these guys, or were. I don't know if they still are, but there's some elements to the music and the arrangement of stuff that kind of reminds me of them as well. But your Talking Heads thing was, the observation was spot on. I mean, I would totally agree with that. But yeah, the Rapture is an American rock band from New York City, formed in 1998, and the band currently consists of Luke Jenner on lead vocals and guitars, Vito Roccaforte on drums and percussion, Gabriele Andruzzi on, I always just want to do this, and it's just not a good look every time I read one of these last names.
Roccaforte just sounds like a delicious cheese. It really does. Blue vein, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course. Only the finest. Gabriele Andruzzi on keyboards, bass, saxophone, and percussions. The classic lineup from 1999 to 2009 added Maddie Safer playing bass and sharing lead vocal duties with Jenner. Safer and Jenner's harmonized choruses became part of the signature sound of the band, featured on several of the band's more well-known songs. The band mixed influences from many genres, including dance, punk, post-punk, acid house, disco, and electronica. They were forerunners on the post-punk revival during the early 2000s as they mixed their early post-punk sound with electronic and dance elements. The band began by releasing a mini album called Mirror in January 1999 under Gravity Records. Afterward, in 2001, the band signed to Sub Pop and released the EP Out of the Races and Onto the Tracks. The band released the song House of Jealous Lovers, which we mentioned earlier, featured on Into the Music, in 2002 under the new record label DFA Records. After a re-release of the song, it peaked at number 27 on the UK singles charts in 2003 and received critical acclaim. Later that year, the band released their first full-length album, Echoes, which you mentioned earlier. The album secured 2 top 40 singles in the UK and also was met with critical acclaim, being awarded Album of the Year by your beloved Pitchfork, and yes, get it in there, and runner-up in NME's, which was second only to the White Stripes that year. So you can imagine, stiff competition. The Rapture opened for the Sex Pistols in a football stadium in England and underwent a large major bidding war, eventually signing with Vertigo Records out of the UK and Strummer Records, both owned by Universal Music. In January 2004, the Rapture toured with Franz Ferdinand on the MME Awards Tour. Later that year, the band toured the main stage of the Curiosa Festival alongside Interpol, Mogwai, and The Cure. All bands that are probably, I think at this point, been alluded to on this channel as well as Into the Music. So they're keeping good company. The band released their second studio album, Pieces of the People We Love, on which this track featured, in 2006 under the Universal Records and Vertigo Records, with production from Danger Mouse, Paul Epworth, and Ewan Pearson. The band entered a small hiatus in 2008 after band member Luke Jenner left the band, but he eventually returned after 8 months. However, Matty Safer, the band's longtime bassist and vocalist, also left the band permanently in 2009. After signing to DFA Records, the band released their third studio album, In the Grace of Your Love, in September 2011, which was their first studio album in 5 years. In 2014, it was revealed that the Rapture had disbanded, though no official statement had been made. The band later reunited in 2019 without Safer. Pieces of the People We Love saw bassist Matty Safer taking a more prominent role in the songwriting and singing lead vocals on several tracks, with multi-instrumentalist Gabrielle Andrucci also being involved in the band's songwriting for the first time. As a result, creative tensions arose between them and the band's co-founders, vocalist-guitarist Luke Jenner and drummer Vito Roccaforte. In 2011, Jenner said, Safer also had ambitions himself to be a songwriter, but that really came out strongly on Pieces of People We Love. He wanted to write songs, and so he started taking up a lot more space, and Gabe joined the band. It started, it became this power struggle between Matty and Gabe and me and Vito. And Vito doesn't really like conflict, so it left me kind of versus Matty and Gabe. So I lost that one. So already you're seeing that there's this splinter effect in the band and what shades of what would come to light, right? So the album was well received by critics, with Rolling Stone, Collective, and The Guardian all awarding it 4 out of 5 stars. At Metacritic, the album has earned a rating of 74 out of 100. So let's jump into these interesting lyrics. Oh, the sun-drenched French girls won't relate to a frozen glare from the northern state, dreaming of fat, happy babies, kicking ladies in the metro now. And the mirrors won't sing back divine, be it chopping your hair or chopping a line. But you laugh, crack up, they laugh, crack up, and smile. Woo, all right, let's fall apart. And the clock starts ticking now. Tick, 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 ow. She said, your allegory is far too blunt. I said, this ain't no laboratory, you're the cunt. She said, emotional distance, it doesn't rhyme or resonate brilliant in its time. But it is lyrical genius or crap rock poetry. I say the lineage runs Morrison, Patti Smith, and me. But maybe the reason we're so uninspired is because the hour is late and the bodies are tired. I think everyone here can agree that a party ain't great because the booze is free. Nah, the free spirits ain't setting no one's spirits free. Yeah, uh-huh, I'm falling apart. And the clock starts here and now. Tick, 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 ow. Winding it up now. People don't dance no more. What? They just stand there like this. Uh-huh. They cross their arms and stare you down and drink and moan and diss. That's right. Now, the diss thing. I've seen much conjecture over this lyric, whether it's diss, hiss, or piss. And depending on what you believe, that's you're going to come off apparently staunch in your opinion, according to all the lyric websites that I've reviewed. So
Oh,
please, this isn't me. I'm just reading what's in front of me. I saw some interesting conversations, let's say, in the comment section on some of these websites. People don't dance no more. What? They just stand there like this. That's right. They cross their arms. They stare you down. They drink and moan and diss. Okay, now. People don't dance no more. They just stand there like this. They cross their arms and stare you down and drink and moan and diss. Woo. Y'all ready, ladies? Yeah. Are y'all ready, girls? Yeah, yeah. I used to think life's a bitter pill, but it's a grand old time. Those are the lyrics. And Simon Robinson of Singer's Room would write of the tune, Woo, All Right, Yeah, Uh-huh, is a high energy dance punk track that features propulsive beats, angular guitar riffs, and catchy vocal hooks. The song is a celebration of the power of music to bring people together and create a sense of collective joy and excitement. Lyrically, the song is a call to arms for anyone who loves music and wants to let loose and have a good time. The lyrics are simple but effective, as the singer repeats the song's title over and over again, creating a hypnotic and infectious chant that will have you dancing along in no time. And I can't help but to agree. It is a very dancey little number with some pretty interesting lyrics. I love the Morrison, Patti Smith reference in there as well. So thank you for giving us a listen.
there's a couple of, well, there's about 3 points there actually. First one, as someone who doesn't really like genres, it's weird because um, the dance punk genre, whatever that means, I see absolutely no relation to punk whatsoever in this song.
Yeah.
And I think, like, sometimes you say pop punk, and like in this country, that would be termed as an insult.
Yeah.
But it isn't, in America, it's a defined thing. Um, but it's just interesting that they would label something pop punk when I don't think there's any relation to punk. It's any kind of, I don't think it's attitude or whatever it is, but it's an interesting label.
Yeah.
Um,
I would imagine that if you took a time machine from around when the name pop punk was invented and took it back to when punk was established and said, "Hey, what do you guys think of this?" Everyone would start vomiting instantly. All the punkers would, right? So
there
I
would be
get what you're
like,
saying. There's almost a contradiction to it. So
although I have got some stuff which is labeled pop, punk dance from 80, 81. I might dig some of that out just to get my own back,
do it.
and then you'll be sorry. But then the
Or
second the
maybe I
second
won't
one
be.
was you were talking about the tensions within the band, and I always find it's a very common story, But
Yeah.
I always find it interesting. As you usually have within a band, not always, but quite often, within your classic setup of a band, you'll have maybe one or two main songwriters, and then somebody else, let's call him George, for instance, starts writing songs, and the other
Mhm.
the other two, which we might call John, Paul, don't want him to, and don't let
Yeah.
him. And then, you fast forward 50 years, and George's song is the most popular one on Spotify. And you think you have another string to your bow. You got, especially if they're good.
Yeah.
Why is all this territorial pissing? It's
Yeah.
silly, but people can't help it. And the third point that's come to mind, which we were talking about other bands as well recently, is if you go back to when I was much younger, the idea that a band could have a 5, 6, and we talked about 20-year gap between releases would just be ridiculous. Their
Yeah.
time is done and dusted. You may wait more than 2 years and that boat has sailed. You're gone. But I think one of the joyful things about internet is that it's taken away the time element, really, because you have access to all music from all times, anytime you want. It's
Yeah.
condensed it all down. So they can go away, they can have their silly fallouts and do all their shit, then come back and release an album, and they can still carry on, which I think's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that that would never have happened, in 1980 or 85. You would wait 5 years and people would go, who?
Yeah.
I've moved on 8 times since you last put something out.
Right.
Sorry.
But I love finding a band that has one of those lapses in their releases well
Yeah.
after it's occurred. So I'm not part of the fan base that
They're
had
sitting
to
there waiting.
that had to endure that, right? I could just sort of laugh and be like, well, I didn't really find out about it until all their shit was out and it was all readily available for me and I just tore through it. So
Can you imagine if like the only band you like was like My Bloody Valentine? You would absolutely just have a nervous breakdown. 'Cause when are they gonna find me?
yeah. I equate it to being like a fan of George R.R. Martin and waiting for these next Song of Ice and
Yeah.
books to come out. And I'm just like,
He's not gonna
God,
write him, is he? He's not
I
gonna.
fucking, dude, come on, man. If
Yeah.
it's gonna break me if he doesn't. That's the thing about it. Because I'm
The
just
TV
waiting for
series have
so
done
goddamn
it.
long.
They've done the work for him, haven't they? They've done it.
Yep.
So,
And now all of his other shit's getting picked up, and that's another distraction.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah. He's never gonna write him.
no. Unfortunately, the writing's on the wall there, I think, and unfortunately not on paper. So Ay. But yeah, thank you for
Anyway,
giving this a listen. Yeah. Thanks for giving this a listen. I'm glad I could give you another track by these guys that you weren't familiar with that wasn't off that first album. And that you, I think, enjoyed it.
Yeah, for the most part.
Cool. Great. Well, guys out there in the listening audience, let us know what you made of this track, what you think of the Rapture. If there's other stuff that we should check out by them, please use the comments field for however you see fit. Just be kind. All that out of the way, think about liking, sharing, or subscribing. We could always use your guys' support in bolstering the numbers and getting the channel out there and getting more eyes on us. It just builds the community of music shares that we've been trying to establish here since day one. So thank you so much. And hopefully John and I will see all y'all and some more on the next installment of the Audiophiles. See you later, guys.